Awesome. Well, Isabella, thank you so much for being able to join me today. Why don't you go ahead, give us like a 30-second pitch of who you are and what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I'm Isabelle Guarino-Smith with the Residential Assisted Living Academy. We teach and train real estate investors how to start, own, and operate their own residential assisted living homes for seniors.
So, my goal is to try to rewind all the way to the timeline of exactly where you came from, how you got started doing whatever you were doing before this, and how that transition period started into actually doing what you're doing now. So, I guess what was your first itch of being an entrepreneur?
Well, my dad was always an entrepreneur. So, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I definitely grew up with a dad which that with that entrepreneurial mindset, with that rich dad mindset. So he actually discouraged us to go to college. He was like, do not do the traditional path. Do something that matters in this world. Make something, be your own boss. And that's kind of the family vibe I grew up in. So I did go to college only because I got 100% full ride and I was being paid to go. So it made a lot of sense to just go. But after college, I did Teach for America and then I became a flight attendant. And when I was doing that, I was having a lot of fun doing that, but I was watching my dad transition in his real estate career from investing in a bunch of different single family home opportunities to residential assisted living. And when I saw what he was doing and I saw the peace and comfort and the cash flow he had in this, I was very intrigued. So I kept pushing my way in, being like, show me more, teach me more, tell me more. And just sitting in his office, learning through osmosis. And pretty much I just begged him to let me come work for him. And eventually he did. And the rest is history.
I guess even a little bit further backwards, what's kind of your dad's background of what he got started doing?
Yeah, he started real estate investing at 18. He was a musical professor and teaching and training people how to play drums and all sorts of different instruments. But at 18, he invested in his first real estate property. And since then, he was an entrepreneur, an educator, a speaker, a trainer. So I watched him do that my whole life. So yeah.
Cool. So is RAL Academy ran by you and your father?
My dad passed last year. So for the last 8 years, I worked side by side with him building the 8 companies that we own and operate. And when he passed, I had to come out from behind the scenes and really take everything and move it forward. So for the last year, I've been the lead educator at the academy, and being able to just take that forward and really become a living legacy. It's been a lot of fun and there's been a lot of blessings throughout, the sadness and the grief, but it's been amazing to be able to continue his legacy going forward.
It's amazing. I love to hear that. So it sounds like you had him as a mentor in order to get started. Can you talk me through what either your deal together or your first deal was and kind of run through the numbers if you deep dive on some of those numbers of how you actually got that deal, what you bought it for, what it rents for, kind of really nitty-gritty stuff?
Sure. So that first deal that we got into with residential assisted living, the intent was to move my grandmother in. So she fell, broke her hip. She needed 24/7 care. So the need was very personal. That first one, we purchased an existing business. It was about 150 for the business and like maybe 350 for the home. So really, really steal of a deal. The woman who owned it was filing for bankruptcy and she just needed to truly get out of it. So in exchange for her telling us that she would help us, learn the ins and out of the business, she sold it to us for pretty cheap, which she did not help us learn. She kind of left us on our own, but that's perfectly okay. We figured it out. But we got into that. We purchased the home. It was existing. It's a 10 bed, 10 bath home in Phoenix, Arizona. Most of the residents are paying about $4,500 a month. So it brings in about $45,000 gross. Expenses are right around 30K every month. The debt service is about 5 on the home. So that one home cash flows us 10 grand every month or 120 per year. And that's kind of basic numbers that works all throughout the US because $4,500 a month is the national average to live in one of these homes. So Arizona just is very reflective of the national standard, but some states are way more and some states are less. So it really does range, but for us, that's kind of right in the middle there.
Gotcha. So $4,500 a month for 10 residents. So that's 45K. We'll have 5K a month debt service. Could you talk a little bit about the expenses? Do you hire someone to actually manage it? How does that work?
Yeah, so expenses are everything that you have in your normal home, like food and, cable and utilities and property taxes, property insurance, things of that nature. But then you're right, there's a lot of different things that are different in residential assisted living than maybe in a regular home, like your licensed administrator, your licensed caregivers, liability insurance, vacancies. We always bake in for at least 10% vacancy, business license renewal. So there's a bunch of different things baked into that 30,000 that in our training, we obviously go through everything super, super in depth, but there's a lot in there and a lot is normal and then a lot is not so normal. Very, very niche to this industry for sure.
Got it. So, how do you go about finding a licensed admin to actually take care of the senior citizens in there?
It's super choppy. Sorry, I couldn't hear that one at all.
How do you find the licensed admin in order to actually take care of the residents?
Okay, so where you find licensed administrators is typically on job websites like Craigslist, LinkedIn, and Indeed. Really, you can find them anywhere, right? It's not that difficult to find, right? You put out a job ad and you find them. 80% of this industry is run by immigrants, so people from all over the world are involved in this industry. So getting involved with the assisted living community in your local area, talking with geriatric doctors and nurses, elder law attorneys, hospice agents, placement agents, all those people may have recommendations for you of someone in the industry looking for a job. In a big box facility, those caregivers are taking care of 20 to 1. And when they come to our homes, it's 4 to 1 or 5 to 1. So they are very, very, very happy to come move from a big box facility to come work for us to get paid the exact same, but their job is significantly easier and they're hanging out in a luxury home all day long. So it's pretty easy to attract them once they find out that you're coming to town.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll get a lot of applications.
Yes.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you started in Phoenix. Where are you located today? And where is your portfolio? What does your portfolio look like today?
Yeah, so we own and operate 3 homes here in Phoenix. I still live here, and we invest in students all across the country. So we teach and train on this in all 50 states, right? We host our trainings in Phoenix, but we're responsible for over 1,500 newly opened RAL care homes across the country. I'm not a franchise, so I don't take anything from anyone who we teach and train. It's their own profits, it's their own businesses, teaching people to fish so they can feed themselves for life. But we do occasionally have students who come to us and say, hey, I've got this deal and the numbers look good. And, we're excited for them and excited about it. And if we've built that relationship, we're always open to investing in our students. So we've got about 50 different investments across the country with different people, but 3 of our own homes in Phoenix.
Wow, 1,500 homes, that's a lot. And how long, I think you said 8 years is how long you've been helping students?
Yes, so we've been teaching and training for 10 years now, 20, right? Well, I guess 2023 will be 10 years right on the dot. So almost there. Just 2 months away. It'll be our 10-year anniversary. But yeah, about 10 years we've been teaching and training. 8 years in, I was my dad's first employee when, his classes used to be really small, maybe 10 to 20 people, and he was doing it all himself and, working that out. And now our classes are about 150 people per class. And so it's just grown and grown and grown over the years. We host a big national convention every year that has like 800 people. We represent all 30,000 of these care homes across the country today. So even though everyone thinks it's a very niche industry, we're really not. We represent 61% of all of the current beds in the assisted living world, in the assisted living industry.
So I read a stat earlier that I believe there's 3 times as many people that turn 65 than people that turn 21. How do you see one, the large amount of baby boomers moving into these residential facilities? How do you see this market moving, and how are you planning accordingly?
Yeah, so we call it the silver tsunami, right? The baby boomers are coming and you cannot stop it. Currently, the silent generation is who lives in assisted living. There's about 44 million of them, but there's 76 million baby boomers, and they don't need assisted living yet. But in the next 5, 10 years, the oldest baby boomers will start to need it. And then we're going to have this massive influx of people. At the peak, 11,500 people turning 85 every single day. So this is a mega opportunity or a mega crisis, depending on what side of the wave you're going to be on. I always encourage people to have at least one of these homes because the cost of care has gone up 79% over the last 10 years. And we're currently 1.3 million beds short, but we're about to be doubling the amount of seniors who need care and assistance. So this is the biggest opportunity of our lifetimes. I'm assuming you're young like me, and if this isn't even going to be, at its peak for another 20 years, this is the opportunity of our lifetime. You can get in it at any time, but for real, this is major.
And it seems like each deal can be a big win. I'm not sure exactly how long each deal takes, but each deal seems like if you're making a 10K on one deal, personally, I own around 90 properties. None of them bring in 10K a month. But just being able to consolidate that all probably a little bit easier to have someone manage it, creating so much revenue. What do you look for when you're actually trying to find or helping students find what they should be looking for a good residential home? Let's say I'm out here trying to purchase a home. Let's walk through the process together.
The number one thing you're looking for is the demographics of the area. So we want to be not where you think, not where the 85-year-old is. We want to be where the 50 to 70-year-old upper middle class daughter Judy is, right? She's typically a homeowner. She's typically making twice the median income. That's who we want to target because she's the one searching for the home. She's the one choosing the home, paying for the home, complaining about the home, or praising you because the home's so amazing. So we want to be right next door to daughter Judy. Another big tip is if there's a big box facility that's being built, a brand new one being built, you want to be at their doorstep. You want to be as close to them as possible because they've done the internal feasibility study to say that that's the right place to put the home, that the seniors are coming, there's density, there's demand, and that the demographics are correct. So being near daughter Judy, being near a brand new big box, those are big keys.
Oh, that's a lot of insight, actually. Yeah, I always say if everyone else is doing it, like these big guys, they've chosen very specifically. Especially, I was talking with Grant Cardone earlier, and he always says, "I always just follow where the big guys go. The big money, they've already done the research. Why do the legwork yourself when you can see exactly where the money is going?" So, I live in San Diego. That's where I am located right now. Um, as you know, and I saw your post about it, San Diego's changing a lot of rules based off of Airbnbs. They're making it so only 1% of all units are allowed to be Airbnbs, which means that if you had 30 units in an apartment complex, you're going to lose probably 60 to 70% of them. Um, do you think San Diego, I believe, is a good market? Has a lot of people retiring here, has very close to a lot of immigrants, meaning that there would be a lot of staff. If I was, let's say, looking, but I couldn't buy a business that's already preoccupied, what are kind of the steps in your mind of what I should be looking for in a home, and then what sort of steps I would need to do to make it qualified? Any sort of renovations, things like that.
Yeah. The first question is San Diego a good market? Yes. On one hand, it's people are getting older everywhere, right? We can't stop that. So there's if you lived in San Diego your whole life, you're probably not moving from San Diego to Arizona just because you turned 85. You're going to stay where you grew up, where you're used to it and everything like that. So it's absolutely a great market. There's a lot of daughter Judy's, that 50 to 70-year-old who's upper middle class. That is the San Diego demographic. So I lived there too in Mission Valley for a couple years, 3 or 4 years. So I love San Diego, but absolutely a great market. I will say this, California used to have a limit of 6 residents in the home. So about I would say 99% of the care homes, they're called RCFE in California, residential care for the elderly. That's what those homes are called out there. They just 3 months ago lifted the 6 resident rule. So now it's up to 10. So now you're allowed to have 10 residents in a home. So on one hand, when it was six in a place like California where real estate's expensive, I wasn't mad about it because you could buy a 5 bed, 4 bath right now without having to renovate anything. And that works. You get one shared bedroom and the rest are solo bedrooms. And you don't have to do much renovation, some ramps, some guardrails, handrails, you make it nice, senior safe, but uh, uh, the home's already ready to go. Now in Arizona, we're allowed to have 10 in the home. And so, now that you guys are allowed to have 10, you're not going to find a 10 bed, 10 bath on the market that's reasonable, right? You're going to have to do of the four methods, the one that's buying an existing, which in your state right now, there's 8,000 care homes in the entire state of California. So there's plenty to purchase. But if you don't want to purchase an existing one, the other way is to buy land and build custom from the ground up. Doesn't make a ton of sense in a market like San Diego, but a market like Missouri, Kansas City, right? Somewhere like that, it makes a lot of sense. The third way is to buy a single family home and convert it to become. Our other two properties that we own, that's exactly what we did. So I would buy something that's already larger to start. 300 to 500 square feet per resident is a good rule of thumb. And most seniors are going to want private bedrooms, private bathrooms. So the more bedrooms and bathrooms to start and the more square footage to start, so the less renovation you have to do. The fourth way to get into this is to lease a home from someone who's already got it up and running, already got it licensed, and you're going to operate the business within the home. So San Diego's great. Depending on those four routes, it totally ranges how much it costs, time frame, and effort because there's a lot of factors involved in that. But that's a good starting point, I would say.
Gotcha. So realistically, let's say we went the single family home route. You add in the ramps, the handrails, things like that, especially since this thing was lifted. I've seen a lot of people doing ADUs, so building additional units right in the back, another 4 bedroom house in the back, so you could suddenly host 8, 10, 10 units, 10 residents suddenly. What does that look like in order of like the licensing process, at least what you've seen in California and then what you've seen in Arizona?
Yeah, I wouldn't do an ADU for this because you have to think about the staff, right? They're going to want to have eyes on all the residents in one place. So if you have two separate units, now where's my staff? Someone falls over here, but they're in this home, it gets real complicated. So think one large luxury upscale home in a really nice part of town. If I was in San Diego, I'd be looking at La Jolla and Del Mar. More or less, right? Large properties. But the other question you had about renovations, that's what you asked?
Yeah, renovations. What's really checked in order to make sure it
Oh, license.
qualify for the license?
Yeah, so every state varies, but in California, it's going to be all of your state rules and regs, and then your county will have different rules and regs. So usually the state rules are way lower than what I ever suggest. Like most states, and actually every state I've ever seen says 80 to 100 square feet per person. That's cruel. That's terrible. I would never advise that, right? We say 3 to 500. So if you follow what I tell you to do, you're going to exceed your state's rules in every single category because it's like the wild wild west in this industry. There's not a ton of rules and regs, and they're so bad that it's like we do everything really above standard. So definitely big, definitely luxury, keeping it as senior safe. The fire marshal will come over, make sure that you have everything you need from lighting, emergency lighting, fire suppression, your exit signs posted where they need to be. That's all done through the fire marshal when he comes over to give that stamp of approval. Licensing in California takes about 3 to 6 months. You fill out some paperwork, you submit it. I'm always going to suggest that you walk it in so that the process goes a lot faster instead of mailing it in and it's going to God knows who and going at the bottom of the pile. Walk it in, talk to the person, make conversation, and get that done faster. But 3 to 6 months, not a big deal. There's a lot of things to be done in the meantime before you even get that license. So it's okay.
So, and I always say I call it dumbing down the process of, let's say the order of events is probably find the home, submit early on for the license, even if it's not ready yet, start getting it ready. And then once the fire marshal is going to come in there, review the home, tell you if there's anything you missed that you need to add on or fix. Once you get that green light of the fire marshal, what are the next steps in order to actually get that license?
Yeah, so the physical home has that license. So they're just going to do that check, make sure the paperwork's filled out good, and they'll give you the stamp of approval. So it's not anything to be worried about, right? It's just paperwork. But in the meantime, while you're doing all of those steps, you need to be finding your licensed administrator, getting them on board because they need to start hiring your staff, right? And they also, you need to start marketing day one, right? The moment you get that home, or even the moment you commit to being in this industry, start marketing, start building your brand, start telling people coming soon. The more people are excited about it, the more people are aware of it. When you have that open house, when you open doors, now you have a waiting list. Now you have people ready to move in. Senior housing's like an avocado. It is too ripe. It's perfect for 2 days and then it's brown, right? When you need senior housing, you're not like, I'm looking for something in 6 weeks or 6 months. You're like, I need a house for mom by Friday. Like I need it now. She needs to move in now. So it's quick. It's hard to have waiting lists because there's not a lot of people premeditating their move in. It's usually something happens. It's they fell, they hurt themselves, they found moldy food or medications that weren't being taken, and the doctor said you have to go. People don't move in for funsies. It's typically doctor ordered. So that's important to note too, is that that marketing, building that brand, you're putting it in daughter Judy's mind that, hey, we're here. Hey, you might need this. Daughter Judy might have put mom or dad somewhere else in the meantime, but the moment you're open, she may want to move them over. So marketing right away, working out your staff right away, all through that process. Once you're licensed, once you have your staff, you do that open house and you start filling the home with residents, and then you're cash flowing.
Seems great. For the staff, are they usually, and you can say what your students do, what you do. Does your staff live on the property? Is it like a 24/7 situation, or is it a certain hour time frame?
I don't love live-in caregivers because if you do have to let somebody go, now you just also made someone not just jobless but homeless. So it becomes a lot to have a live-in caregiver. Plus, there's 24/7 care, awake staff happening at this home. So if you have 10 residents, I would say you want 4-to-1 or 5-to-1. So at least two staff members on during the day with 10 residents and maybe one at night. If you I like shift work, so they're working 8, 10, or 12-hour shifts like a nurse. And we also teach to scale because having one home is going to cost you more than having multiple homes. The staff, because they're like a nurse working 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, they're going to work 3 or 4 days for you. But if you don't have another home, they're going to work 3 or 4 days for Joe Schmo down the street. So if you have two homes, you're not paying overtime and they get to work for you here 3 or 4 and work for you here 3 or 4. They're happy to be in the same culture and environment. You're happy because you get a great worker who's not working overtime, and it's consistent branding and feel and culture in all of your homes.
It seems when you explain it like this, it sounds very straightforward. What sort of resistance have you seen? What people say? Because I've invested in all sorts of housing, self storage, apartment complexes, Section 8 housing, done flips, done renovations, done Airbnbs. What there's usually with every single industry, there's someone saying, "Oh, I don't do that because X or Y." Section 8 people aren't going to tear up your homes. Airbnbs, what if it doesn't rent? All sorts of things. What are kind of the objections a lot of people say when you're suggesting maybe you should do residential assisted living?
I think there's just a lot of fear of the unknown. People are usually scared about liability, right? They're like, what happens if someone dies? And it's like, when you're 95 and you're moving into an assisted living home, it's not a shock when they die, right? They're moving into they need help with activities of daily living. They can no longer walk, get up, feed themselves, bathe, take a shower, right? Brush their hair and teeth, take their medication. They need help with 3 to 5 activities of daily living. So I think that's really important to note, is that these families, it's not like a 9-year-old who gets hit by a car and it's like, oh my God, that's not supposed to happen. But when you're 95, 101, it is supposed to happen. That's the cycle of life. Now, I don't want anyone that happening prematurely, or it happening with anything inappropriate going on. Absolutely not. Liability insurance is about $1 or $2 per day per resident. With 10 residents, that's $300 to $600 a month. It's a line item. And in our training, we do, connect our students with the best liability insurance instructors and agents so that they make sure they know how to protect themselves, their staff, their seniors, so that they can be safe all the way around. Because I don't want to set anyone up for failure. I want to make sure that everything's going to be clean and smooth and really work out well. So having liability insurance is an absolute must. Being afraid of the liability in this industry is like, no, there's nothing to be afraid of. High risk, high reward. This industry is not easy, but there's a reason the cash flow on these homes is 10, 20. One of my students is making 40 grand a month on one of his homes out in New Jersey. Like, it is possible. It's happening all over our country, but it wouldn't be happening if there wasn't high risk, if there wasn't a lot of work that you have to do to get this home up and running.
Yeah, liability insurance seems definitely a move. That's what I always say is like people are always worried about all these things of getting sued. Getting sued is the worst fear in the world, right? I always just recommend my people get umbrella insurance over whatever LLC they hold all the properties in. You ready for the lawsuit? They're going to have to sue you, the insurance, and the bank. They'll pay out first. You'll probably be the last to pay out. That's great advice. What do you see on like, because these are big numbers, right? We're playing with big numbers. Let's say I'm looking at a home that's $1 million home that has 6 or 8 bedrooms here in San Diego. What do you do to essentially justify price points? And does that money come out of usually the daughter's hands? Does it come out of, is insurance somehow involved in being able to pay? I don't know how Social Security gets integrated with this based off of the business license.
Yeah, people pay for their care through Medicare. Some are subsidized by the VA, so they may have aid and attendance if they've served even one day in active duty. If they have long-term care insurance, that's an excellent way to pay for their care needs. We have to remember that the greatest transfer of wealth is the baby boomers to the millennials, but we're forgetting that 70% of people will need daily care for an average of 3.5 years. And at the rates of $4,500 a month, that's a lot of money that's going to go away before it ever even touches a millennial. So it's the greatest transfer of wealth, not from one generation to the next, from one generation to their care needs. That's what's going to happen. A lot of seniors plan to pay for this with their cash, their IRAs, their investments, or selling their physical home and using that money to pay for their care needs. Of course, there's a huge category of people who say, I'm going to let my kids figure it out. And that's the daughter, Judy, who has to foot the bill. Almost every single day when I tell someone what I do, they say, yeah, I'm paying for my mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever it may be. And the numbers I hear on the daily are 6, 7, 8, 9. I've heard up to $12,000 a month that people are paying for their loved ones' needs right now. And so it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I was gonna say my grandpa pays I think close to $9,000 a month, and he's in one of the big box ones that I think has it's a 30-to-1 ratio. So
Yeah,
that's kind of a big difference, right?
it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So with rising interest rates, have you changed your business model at all? Has it even affected this? It kind of seems like it wouldn't that much, but how what have you seen and how what changes have you made based off of finances and potential recessions?
Yeah, it doesn't affect us at all because it's about the opportunity. The investment doesn't really matter, the price point of the investment. Most of my students who are doing this are in for upwards of $1 million anyway. So we're already looking at that higher tier of investing and these really nice, luxurious, beautiful homes. Because if you're going to be wanting to get those high rates of 6 to 9 grand a month, they're going to be expecting a really nice property and private bedrooms, private bathrooms, luxury care, nice food, all those different amenities. So the price of the real estate doesn't really matter for us. And I always say, you're marrying the house, you're dating the rate. The rates are going to go up, they're going to go down. It shouldn't deter anyone from investing. This time period has really been separating people who are just dabbling from people who are real estate investors. And if that's, who your listeners are, then they know that to be true because this isn't something to be afraid of. This is life. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, and you fix it when it goes down, and we make it happen and you keep moving forward.
Yeah, I actually really like that the rates went up because all of my offers are getting accepted. Every seller is being negotiable, and all of a sudden it's just me out here collecting all the houses. So it's been nice seeing the rates change. So last few questions, we've actually been burning through these fairly quickly. If your RAL Academy closed tomorrow, or somehow someone couldn't get a hold of RAL Academy, what other sources would you point someone to? A lot of people usually say bigger pockets for real estate investing, things like that. Is there other sources of information for residential assisted living?
Great question, because we are the national educators on this. The only competition I know in as far as education, they're localized. So, like, I know a girl who just teaches in Wisconsin, and she only teaches you to get licensed. Same in California. I know a guy who just teaches about Northern Cal, and it's just to get licensed. There's really nobody else teaching and training on the A to Z method nationally from the investor perspective. I do know one or two others who teach how to work in the home and care for the seniors, and own the home, but that's not what we do. So I wouldn't advise anyone to go there. I would just, if we went away tomorrow, then I there would probably be not very many places to learn about this in the way that your listeners would want to. But one of our biggest competitions, and I love him. Competition's great. The more people educating the market is great. He does teach people how to live in the home and do shared bedrooms and a lot lower end. His name's Robert King, and he's a really cool guy. Love him. I think he's living in Belize now. He's just chilling because he's made so much money off of his homes.
So he teaches how to live. He like you work and live in the home and just essentially have a bunch of senior citizens as roommates. Is that his model?
Pretty much. And you are the licensed administrator. You are doing the cooking, the baking, the candlestick making. You are wiping the seniors' bums. You're brushing their hair, passing their meds, but you own and operate the real estate as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's probably a little bit more of less of for investors and more for if I am a licensed caretaker and I go, wow, you're making so much money. I want that to be me. That's kind of how you can go from a licensed caretaker to more on the investment standpoint.
Yeah, about 80% of this industry is run that way, mom and pop style. So the owner is living in the home and they're doing it all themselves. So we're the 20%, we're the anomaly who's saying, no, we're going to run this as professional owners. These are going to be luxury, they're going to be upscale, they're going to be run as true businesses. So no one else teaches the way we do. Everyone else teaches what the 80% does. So
Yeah, it sounds like you're the big fish in the pond now.
yes, yes. I'm sure more will be coming just because of the silver tsunami and, teaching and training over 150 people every 6 weeks. There's going to be someone who comes and says, I want to be the new you. And I love that. I welcome competition because the more exposure we have to this industry, the better. We have to stop having big boxes and commercial facilities be the only option. It's like taxi. It's like that's what everyone thinks of when they think of senior housing, right? They just think of the big box, the commercial facilities. And for a long time, we only ever thought of taxi until Uber came. And then we were like, oh, this is so much better. That's what we're doing with RAL is we have to create that exposure. So people walk into those homes, people sit in that Uber and they say, I'm never going back to a taxi. I'm never going back to a big box. Like I'm coming to this. And that's what we're doing, disrupting the senior housing industry.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. Now, taking a little bit of a tangential approach, any sort of sources of truth, like you said, Robert King, I guess, is kind of more of competition than a source of truth because you teach fairly different things, it sounds like. But are there any books you'd recommend? Any people to listen to, or even yourself if you want to? I always do the shameless self plug of listen to this podcast that you run. What if I wanted to educate myself, but I wasn't ready to start a course or something like that? What sort of content do you provide, or that you've seen out there in the wild that you think would be a good stepping stone?
Yeah, RAL 101 is the greatest first place to go because it's all free stuff. So you've got free phone calls with me and my team. We've got webinars on there. We've got books available for you on there. We've got all sorts of free content. So RAL101.com is the best place to go to just start that education process and see if this is the right industry for you.
And then I know that you do offer a course, and I know the course is mainly for people who are ready to get started. It sounds like more than anything, not someone that's like kicking tires. It sounds like for people that are, I want to get started, and if you hold my hand, it will work, right? So, can you give a quick 30-second plug of your course, where we can find it? And I think we actually got a promo code for this.
Oh, good. Well, you'll have to drop the promo code, but RAL3day.com, RAL3, the number 3day.com is where you can learn more information about our 3-day training. But it's 3 days in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the lead educator, and everyone else who teaches and trains with me was past students who were in that class. They went out, got their homes up and running, and now they're back to teach and train on this as well. We don't just talk theory, talk concept. We're all in this industry. We do it ourselves. I think that's really important if you're going to teach someone about it, to be in the trenches with them, to be all about what's happening right now, the newest methods and everything that's happening. So in that training, we teach people how to find their homes, fund their homes, and fill their homes. We go through staffing, business plans, licensing, right? How to do this without any of your own capital, how to find the best and worst demographics, what you need in your policies and procedures, really A to Z. So yes, that training is definitely not for tire kickers. It is for people who are ready to take action, ready to move forward, and ready to change their life. Because after you're that exposed to the industry and what's happening and this unstoppable silver tsunami, it's hard to say,